Namaste Sanskrita Mitrani. So Namaste dear Sanskrit friends. We've been looking at the different forms of the third person pronouns and nouns in the plural in all the different cases. And in today's lesson, which is lecture number 18, we are going to be doing a revision with some exercises of the third person pronouns and nouns for the masculine, neuter and feminine in the plural. So the content of today's class will be around this revision and exercises based on a conversation for the third person pronouns and nouns in all the cases for the pullinga or masculine and the napumsakalinga or neuter words ending with the akara or the letter a, and strilinga or the feminine words ending with the a letter and the e. And we will look at these in the bahuvachanam or the plural forms. And it will also be accompanied with the practice of dhatu rupa or verb conjugations, and there will be an emphasis on learning new vocabulary. So with these few words, let's do a recap of the table of the different word forms. So here we have the first one, Kim, in the masculine singular was kaha, and what happens in the plural here? So we see it becomes ke, kan, kaih, kebhyah, kebhyah, kesham, keshu. Which two were similar? Yes, the fourth and the fifth. Kebhyah, kebhyah. Uttamam. What happens to the tat or the etat? We'll stick to the tat here. So we have saha in the singular, which becomes te. How would you remember it? Yes. So in the English, the plural for third person is the they, and that is the easiest way to remember this form. So remember, the plural for the third person is identical to the plural in English, which is they, but here the pronunciation is te. So te, and then how do you proceed? You have a clue, fall back on the kim, which is ke and then kan, and then it will follow the same rhyme almost. So there is a phonetic similarity between the two words. So te, tan, taih, tebhyah, tebhyah, tesham, teshu. Uttamam. Now let's look at a masculine word, janakaha. So janakaha becomes janakaha. Janakam becomes janakan. So janakaha, janakan, janakaih, janakebhyah, janakebhyah, janakanam, janakeshu. Hey, janakaha. Which ones are the similar ones here? Yes. So like you can see the color scheme that is there. So you have the plural, the first case and the eighth cases are similar, and you have the fourth and the fifth are similar here. Now let's look at the word mitram and see what it does there. So what happens before the mitram? We look at the word. We look at the pronoun kim in the neuter. So we have kani, kani, kaih, kebhyah, kebhyah, kesham, keshu. Very easy. You just need to remember the first two, the first case and the second case. What happens with tat becomes tani, tani, and then taih, tebhyah, tebhyah, tesham, teshu. Uttamam. What happens to the word mitra? So mitrani, mitrani, mitraih, 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 mitrebhyah, mitrebhyah, mitranam, mitreshu. Hey, mitrani, because it's the same as the first case. Uttamam. So now we've seen that there is a similarity there, and what you find here is that the main difference is that for the neuter, the first two cases are the same, but for the rest of it, they seem to have similar forms. Let's move on to the feminine case and let's see what happens. So we have ka becomes kaha, and then kam becomes kaha. So we have the first two cases which is the same like for the neuter words. So kaha, kaha, kabhihi, and then kabhyah, kabhyah, kasam, kasu. And what do we notice here? That here you have kabhyah for the feminine. For the masculine and neuter it was kebhyah. What is similar? Yes, the bhyah. And it's the same for the dative and the ablative. Okay, so kebhyah, kebhyah, and for the feminine, kabhyah, kabhyah. Uttamam. What are the additional similarities that you have? You have the first, second, and in this case only the first and the second which are the same, and then you have the fourth and the fifth that are the same, and then you have the sixth which is kasam, and in the sixth masculine it was kesham. So slight variation of sound, but you can identify the suffix here. What happens in the seventh case? Keshu becomes kasu, and as we have seen earlier, it's because of the presence of the a and the e, the a, that basically results in these phonological changes that happen here. What happens to sa? Becomes taha, taha, tabhihi, tabhyaha, tabhyaha, tasam, tasu. Uttamam. Let's move on to a word itself. So let's look at the word amba, and what happens here? Ambaha, ambaha, ambabhihi, ambabhyaha, ambabhyaha, ambanam. So tasam becomes ambanam, and that's where you again notice that the pronouns do it a little differently and the nouns seem to be doing it a little differently. So the pronouns were kesham and kasam, and in the nouns we have janaka nam, so elongating of the vowel, the last vowel janaka nam, and here we have amba nam, mitra nam. Alright, so we see that the suffixes for the pronouns are the same and the suffixes for the nouns are similar here, okay, are the same in fact. So you just need to be aware the suffixes in their very root, in the hardware of the language are the same, but what we are talking about here is really to understand the applicational similarities, the phonetic similarities, so that it can help our memory capture and retain them more easily. And what do we see in the last? It was hey ambaha. So ambaha is the same as the first and the second cases. What happens in the with the word e? So sahodari or sahodari becomes sahodaryaha, and then it's unlike the word amba where the first and the second are the same, and you can see it's the same for the pronouns as well, but for sahodari it does it differently, and you have to pay attention to that. So sahodaryaha in the second case becomes sahodarihi. Alright, so it's a lending of the vowel and a visarga at the end. Sahodarihi. Then sahodaribhihi, sahodaribhyaha, sahodaribhyaha, sahodarinam, sahodaribhyaha, sahodaribhyaha, sahodarinam, and sahodarishu. Uttamam. So we have there, you have janakeshu, mitreshu, sahodarishu. So it's the presence of the e that changes the sa into a sh. Where else do you find that kind of a change happening? Yes, with saha becoming eshaha. Alright, so the dental sa becomes the cerebral sh in the vicinity of the sound e or a. And here we have the final is he sahodaryaha, which is identical to the first case. Now what I would like you to do is really to pay attention to the visuals of this particular table here, because there's a lot of effort that has gone into trying to help you identify what is the minimum that you need to remember for a maximum application across the different pronouns and nouns for the different genders. Alright, so having done this, let's move on to a certain exercise through a conversation with Piyush, which we will then study later on. Namaste Piyusha.
Namaste Arye.
Tava griham grame asti na?
Am avashyam mama griham grame asti.
Yushmakam grame kim kim asti?
Asmakam grame vidyalayah santi, mandirani santi, nadyah santi, tata bhojanashalah santi.
Evam va te tani taha va katham santi?
Te vidyalayah uttamaah santi, tani mandirani sundarani santi.
Taha bhojanashalah?
Taha bhojanashalah swadishtam bhojanam dadati.
Evam va.
ताः नद्यः जलपूर्णाः सन्ति।
युष्माकं ग्रामे किं किं प्रचलति प्रतिदिनम्?
अस्माकं ग्रामे प्रातः बालकाः तान् विद्यालयान् गच्छन्ति। ताः महिलाः
कुत्र गच्छन्ति?
महिलाः तानि मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
एवम्।
पाचकाः ताः भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति।
पाचकाः ये पाकं कुर्वन्ति?
आम्, पाचकाः।
अस्तु।
भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति।
अस्तु।
धीवराः ताः नदीः गच्छन्ति।
धीवराः ये मत्स्यं धरन्ति। अस्तु, धीवराः गच्छन्ति, नदीः गच्छन्ति। उत्तमम्। इदानीं ते ताः च कैः काभिः सह च गच्छन्ति?
ते बालकाः तैः जानकैः सह तान् विद्यालयान् गच्छन्ति। ताः महिलाः ताभिः सहोदरीभिः सह तानि मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
एवं।
ते पाचकाः तैः मित्रैः सह ताः भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति। ते धीवराः ताभिः नौकाभिः सह ताः नदीः गच्छन्ति।
एवम्। इदानीं ते ताः च किमर्थं तत् कार्यं कुर्वन्ति?
बालकाः तेभ्यः पाठेभ्यः तान् विद्यालयान् गच्छन्ति।
एवम्।
ताः महिलाः ताभ्यः पूजाभ्यः तानि मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
एवं।
पाचकाः भोजनेभ्यः भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति। धीवराः मत्स्यं धर्तुं पत्नीभ्यः मत्स्यं धर्तुं ताः नदीः गच्छन्ति।
एवं। तर्हि धीवराः ताभ्यः पत्नीभ्यः मत्स्यान् धर्तुं नदीः गच्छन्ति वा?
आम्।
एवम्। इदानीं ते ताः च कुतः तत् स्थानं गच्छन्ति?
बालकाः तेभ्यः गृहेभ्यः तान् विद्यालयान् गच्छन्ति।
अस्तु।
महिलाः ताभ्यः वाटिकाभ्यः तानि मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
एवं। पाचकाः
तेभ्यः आपणेभ्यः
एवं
ताः भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति। धीवराः ताभ्यः नगरीभ्यः ताः नदीः गच्छन्ति।
उत्तमम्। इदानीं ते ताः च केषां कासां वा वाहनेन तत् स्थानं गच्छन्ति?
बालकाः तेषां जनकानां वाहनैः तान् विद्यालयान् गच्छन्ति।
तर्हि तेषां जनकानां वाहनेन गच्छन्ति?
आम्।
अस्तु। अथवा वाहनैः। अस्तु।
तदनन्तरं महिलाः तासां सहोदरीणां वाहनैः तानि मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
तर्हि महिलाः तासां सहोदरीणां वाहनैः मन्दिराणि गच्छन्ति।
आम्।
एवम्।
आम्।
अनन्तरं
पाचकाः तेषां मित्राणां वाहनैः भोजनशालाः गच्छन्ति।
अस्तु।
धीवराः संस्थानं वाहनैः ताः नदीः गच्छन्ति।
अस्तु। बहु कार्यं चलति ग्रामे प्रतिदिनम्। इदानीं दिनस्य अन्ते तासु वा सन्तोषः अस्ति वा न वा?
आम्, अवश्यमेव। तेषु बालकेषु ज्ञानवर्धनेन सन्तोषः भवति।
एवं। तर्हि कुत्र तेषु बालकेषु ज्ञानवर्धनेन सन्तोषः भवति? पुनः अन्येषां?
तासु महिलासु भक्त्यः सन्तोषः भवति।
उत्तमं, भक्त्याः अवश्यं सन्तोषः भवति।
आम्, तासु भोजनशालासु स्वादिष्टानि भोजनानि खादित्वा मित्रेषु अतीव सन्तोषः भवति।
अस्तु, तर्हि तेषु मित्रेषु उत्तमं स्वादिष्टं भोजनं खादित्वा सन्तोषः भवति।
आम्, अवश्यं। तदनन्तरं मत्स्यान् प्राप्य तेषु धीवरेषु तथा तासु पत्नीषु अतीव सन्तोषः आनन्दः च भवति।
उत्तमं। हे बालकाः, हे मित्राणि, हे महिलाः, हे पत्न्यः, युष्माकं महत् भाग्यम् अस्ति। धन्यवाद पीयूषा।
धन्यवाद आर्ये।
So let's analyze the conversation, and as we've seen that I had started the conversation by asking Piyush, Namaste Piyusha, tava griham grame asti kim? So I've kept that out and just gone on to the main content here. So we have tava grame kim asti. So what I have done here is the first slide is all in the singular, and then in the second slide I have done it with the plural. But what I'd like you to do is to pause on the first slide and see if you can figure it out for yourself first, and then you can go on to hearing the solution in the following slide. So here, for example, tava grame kim asti would be tava in plural, yushmakam, grame, kim would become kim asti, that stays, and then the answer is mama grame plural, asmakam grame, vidyalayah asti in the plural, vidyalayah santi. And you go down that way. So put a pause here, and then I would like to move on with the answer here. So yushmakam grame kim asti, asmakam grame vidyalayah santi. So this is in the first case plural. Okay, so the first case plural for the masculine, asmakam grame vidyalayah santi. Then mandirani santi. So mandirani is first case plural for the napunsakalinga or the neuter. Then bhojanashalah santi would be first case plural feminine with the a ending. And then nadyah santi, first case plural feminine with the e ending. Okay, so you have to be able to code it up. Moving on, it was saha tat sa cha katham santi, and a conversation. So again, pause the button here, and then we'll move on to the solution. So te tani tascha katham santi, answer te vidyalayah uttamaah santi. So vidyalayah uttamaah so if you have this in the code here, so uttamaah here, just for now you can, the whole thing could be also in blue to indicate that it all goes together. So uttamaah, important thing is that because it is a masculine plural and uttamaah is the adjective, it will have to take on, so the adjectives take on the gender, the number and the vibhakti of the word that they're describing. So te vidyalaya, again it's a first case plural for the masculine, and that's how you have that in the verb. Tani mandirani, so we see it is again the first plural for the neuter. Sundarani thereby, and then taha bhojanashalah swadishtam bhojanam. So taha bhojanashalah was second plural for the feminine a, bhojanashalah swadishtam bhojanam. So when I am saying taha is an a, we have to also know that this is in this case actually a pronoun here. It's the pronoun. Okay, so swadishtam bhojanam dadati becomes dadati, and this is something that we have seen, so you need to pay attention to that. And finally, taha nadyah jalapurnaah. So we are going from e to a ending, so nadi becomes nadyah and purna will be purnaah. It will not become purnyah because it's nadyah doesn't mean it will be purnyah, because the root form of purna is purna. So purnaha. So taha nadyah purnaha santi. Uttamam. Let's move on. Tava grame kim kim prachalati. And so what are the different things that happen? We've tried to use the second case here. So see if you can answer it by yourselves. Moving on. Here we have the answer. So yushmakam grame krim krim prachalati. Asmakam grame pratah balakaha tan vidyalayan. So yes, so this is the second case for the plural for the masculine. Mahilaha tani mandirani gachanti will be the second case plural for the neuter. Pachakaha taha bhojanashalaha gachanti will be the second plural for the feminine words ending with a. And then dhivaraha taha nadihi gachanti will be second case plural feminine with an e ending. Alright, now let's move on to see what happens next. So in the singular we have sahasa cha kena kaya cha saha gachati, with whom, and therefore the instrumental uttamam. And then we go down the list. It's all yours. Let's see the answer. So te taha kahi kabhi saha gachanti, with whom are they going? So this is the third case plural for the masculine, and it's a pronoun. Okay, kabhi saha gachanti. And then balakaha taih janakaih saha. So this is the third plural for the masculine. Tan vidyalayan gachanti. So second plural masculine. Then mahilaha tabhihi sahodaribhihi. So mahilaha, balakaha, we know that they are the first cases. Okay, so I'm not I'm not writing on that up for you. So mahilaha tabhihi sahodaribhihi is the third plural feminine and ending with e. Uttamam. Sahodaribhihi saha tani mandirani, and that is the second plural neuter. Gachanti. Pachakaha taih mitrai. So the mitram is neuter, and therefore this is the third plural neuter. Saha taha bhojanashalaha, which is the second plural feminine and ending with a. Uttamam. Gachanti. Dhivaraha tabhihi naukabhihi. So nauka. Uttamam. So this is the third plural feminine with an a ending. Saha taha nadihi gachanti. So taha nadihi is the second plural feminine with the e ending. Uttamam. Let's go on. So sahasacha kimartham or kasmai kasyai tat tat karoti. What is the reason why they do those respective actions? And we have the answers in the singular. So good luck to you on that. Moving on, let's see the answers. So we have te taha kimartham kebhyaha kabhyaha shcha. So sandhi there, kabhyascha. So this is the fourth. So it's the dative, fourth for the plural and masculine, and it's a pronoun. So masculine and feminine. Okay, so masculine and neuter and the pronoun for that. Tat tat karoti, they do those things. So the answer is balakaha tebhyaha pathebhyaha. Tebhyaha pathebhyaha is pathaha is the masculine. So you need to know what the masculine is, whether it's a masculine or a neuter. But here it would not matter. Masculine and neuter would both get pathebhyaha either way. But here it's a masculine. So this is the fourth plural masculine, fourth case plural masculine. Tan vidyalayan. So we know that that's the second case that we have in all these sentences here. Then mahilaha tabhyaha pujabhyaha. So tani mandirani gachanti. Tabhyaha pujabhyaha, fourth plural feminine, and what is the ending? Pujabhyaha. So tabhyaha pujabhyaha Tani mandirani gachanti. Second case again in the last part. Pachakaha tebhyah bhojanebhyah, for those food items. So bhojanam uttamam. So that's important to know. Fourth case plural and it's the neuter. Taha bhojanashalaha gachanti. Second case again. Finally, dhivaraha tabhyah patnibhyah. So what is it? Yes, fourth case plural, feminine and ending with e. Patnibhyah. Matsyan dhartum. So matsyan would be second plural and the masculine. Dhartum taha nadihi. I'll just write that out for you again because it's the second plural, feminine, and it is ending with e. Nadihi gachanti. Uttamam. Let's move on to the next one. And here we have sahasacha kutaha or kasmat kasyaha gachati. So from where? I leave that for you to fill up by yourselves. Let's move on to doing it together. So te taha cha tascha kutaha kebhyah kabhyascha gachanti will become. So kebhyah kabhyah will be the fifth plural for the masculine and neuter and the feminine for the pronoun gachanti, and then it becomes balakaha tebhyah grihebhyah tan vidyalayan gachanti, but tebhyah grihebhyah will be fifth plural, and is it the masculine or neuter? Griham, and therefore it is the neuter. It is important to know the gender because it will affect other cases. So although it doesn't matter here, but the gender is important to be known. Next, mahilaha tabhyah vatikabhyah. So the moment you hear it start with the tabhyah, you know that it is a feminine word that it is describing. So fifth case plural for the feminine and vatikabhyah, and therefore it is ending with an a. Tani mandirani gachanti. That's a second case for the neuter word. And then we have pachakaha tebhyah apanebhyah taha bhojanashalaha gachanti. So tebhyah apanebhyah, yes, it will be plural, and then is it a masculine or neuter? Aparnaha, and therefore the masculine word. So apanebhyah taha bhojanashalaha gachanti, and finally dhivaraha tabhyah nagaribhyah. So yes, fifth case plural, feminine and ending with an e. Taha nadihi. Second case there, gachanti. Uttamam. Let's move on. So we have saha, sa, cha, kasya, kasyaha va vahanena gacchati. Whose vehicle are they going by? So we have kasya, kasyaha va, which is the sixth case of the genitive, and you have it all in the singular there. So good luck to figure it out. So let's see what the answer is here. So we have te, tascha, and then we have kesham or kasam, which is the sixth plural, masculine and neuter, and the feminine for the pronoun kim. So vahanehi gachanti, in whose vehicles are they going? Answers balakaha tesham janakanam. So the word is janakaha, and therefore it's the masculine. So this is the sixth plural for the masculine. Vahanai is the third plural for the neuter because it's vahanam. Tan vidyalayan gachanti. We've already studied that case. Let's move on to the next one. Mahilaha tasam sahodarinam. So tasam, the moment it starts with a tasam versus tesham, we know that the tasam is a feminine. So sixth plural, feminine, and then sahodarinam. So it is a word ending with an e. Vahanai tani mandirani gachanti. Pachakaha tesham mitranam. So the word is mitram in the neuter, and therefore it will be sixth plural and the neuter. Vahanai taha bhojanashalaha gachanti. And then we have the last one, dhivaraha tasam sansthanam. So tasam once again indicative of the feminine there. So sixth case plural, feminine, and sansthanam. So it's a akara ending word there. And we have vahanai taha nadihi gachanti. So let's see the next case, and that's the penultimate one, which is dinasya ante tasmin tasyam va santoshah asti ke, are they satisfied? So the answers that we have there, and we also have the 8th case that is there, which is He Balaka, He Balaka, He Mitra, He Mahile and He Patni. Yushmakam Mahat Bhagyam Asti. So, like you to figure out the ones for that. Let's go on to see what the answers are. So, here we have Dinasya Ante Teshu or Tasu va Santoshaha Asti Kim. So, this is the 7th case for the plural, and it is the masculine, neuter and the feminine pronouns. Okay. Answer Am Avashyam Teshu Balakeshu. So, Teshu Balakeshu is 7th plural and the masculine. Jnanavardhanena, with an increase of knowledge, Anandaha Bhavati, they are happy. Next, Tasu Mahila Su. So, that is the 7th plural feminine and it's then A ending. Bhaktya Santoshaha Bhavati, with bhakti they are full of contentment. Next, Tasu Bhojanashala Su, we've encountered this already. So, 7th case plural feminine A. Swadishtam bhojanam khaditva, after eating very tasty food. Teshu mitreshu, mitram is neuter and therefore this will be 7th plural neuter. Santoshaha bhavati, uttamam. And finally, tesham dhivaranam, of those, so tesham dhivaranam was the 6th plural for the masculine. Tasu patnishu, of those fishermen in their wives. Tasu patnishu. So, we have the 7th plural feminine and ending with an E there. Matsyan. Yes, tell me what that is. 2nd plural Matsyaha. So, it is the masculine. Prapya ativa anandaha bhavati. They are extremely happy getting the fish there. Finally, He balakaha. Yes, 8th case plural masculine. He mitrani. That's where the difference becomes marked. All this while they were the same forms, but now you have this difference because of the difference in gender. So, this is 8th plural neuter. He mahilaha. Yes, 8th plural feminine A. And finally, He patnyaha. 8th plural feminine and ending with E. Yushmakam mahat bhagyam asti. You're very, very fortunate. So, I hope that this conversation will really help you get a grip of the use of the different vibhaktis for the 3rd person pronouns and nouns in the plural cases. And what I would really like to emphasize is that learning up these cases for the words ending in A and E are going to be very helpful to remember the forms for words that will follow for the words ending with other kinds of consonants and vowels. So, if you get a good grasp of this, I would say maybe 3/4 or 2/3 of your efforts are completed in order to learn the different declensions of Sanskrit words. So, really put an effort to learn this once and for all here. Let's move on to two Gita shlokas which use some of the lessons that we have learned till now. And here these are 2 verses from the 2nd chapter of the Gita, where Krishna is talking of the Sthita Prajna. He is describing who is this person who is established in the self, Sthita Prajna. And these are 2 of my favorite ones, which give a fantastic analysis of the process which results in a person's destruction. So, Krishna starts, he says, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsaha Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamat Krodho Bhijayate Krodhat Bhavati Sammohaha Sammohat Smriti Vibhramaha Smriti Bhramshat Buddhinasho Buddhinashat Pranashyati. So, that's the main phrase of these 2 verses, which is Buddhinashat Pranashyati. Buddhinashat is the 5th case in the singular. So, Buddhinashat, by the destruction of the intelligence or the intellect, pranashyati, the individual is perishes or is destroyed. So how does it start? So he says dhyayato. What do we mean by dhyayato? You remember we had talked about this O here. Yes, it is a visarga, dhyayatah, that is by meditating on, by continuously thinking, contemplating on or dwelling upon. Vishayan, recognize that? Uttamam. So Vishayan is second plural and it's a masculine here. Punsaha. Now punsaha might sound like a plural, but it is not, because it is the sixth case singular for the root word, which is puman, which means an individual or a person. So puman becomes pumsaha. So of an individual who is dwelling constantly on the sense objects, what happens? Sangaha, sangasteshu. So you break it up here. It is sangaha, sangasteshu. I'll break it up there. It is actually sangaha. So that sa becomes a visarga. Sangasteshu pajayate. Do you recognize anything? Yes. So we have teshu. So I'll write that again for you. Teshu plus upajayate. So teshu plus upa becomes teshu. Teshu pajayate. So there's a lengthening of the vowel there. So teshu pajayate. So teshu means in those things. Sangaha, attachment is born. Upajayate. Alright. Then sangat sanjayate. Now you see the whole word is a long one, but you have to know where to break it, and you break it here. Sangat, by attachment. Sangat sanjayate. What happens? Kamaha, desire. And when that desire is not fulfilled, kamat krodho bijayate. So again, you have to break it up there. Okay, krodhaha, krodho bijayate. You recognize this? Yes. So it is krodhaha plus abhijayate. And then it goes on. Okay, so krodhaha, abhi becomes krodhobhi, like soham. Alright, so krodhaha abhijayate means anger is born. Next, krodhad bhavati. So krodhad bhavati is, we have a kind of a sandhi here, but you recognize the case. Krodhat bhavati will become, so krodhat bhavati. So the plus bha, krodhat bhavati. So from anger there is sammoha, delusion or bewilderment. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. So the fifth case is important, and then smriti vibhramaha, the memory is lost. So from this bewilderment there is loss of memory. Smriti bhramshat, from, so smriti bhramshad buddhinashaha or buddhinasho, which becomes buddhinashaha. Okay, buddhinashaha. So smriti bhramshad, from this loss of memory, what happens? The intelligence is corrupted. Okay, so buddhinashaha, and when that happens, buddhinashat pranashyati. Again we have a kind of a sandhi that happens here. Buddhinashat pranashyati, from the destruction of the intelligence, the individual perishes. Okay, so I'll just read out the translation. In whose mind dwells on the sense, on the objects of senses, dhyayataha vishayan punsaha, with absorbing interest, that's dhyayataha. Attachment to them is formed. Sangasteshu pajayate. From attachment desires arises desire. Sangat sanjayate kamaha. Kamat krodho vijayate. From desire anger comes forth. Anger leads to bewilderment. Krodhat bhavati sammohaha. From bewilderment comes loss of memory. Sammohat smriti vibhramaha. By that the intelligence is destroyed. Smriti bhramshad buddhinasho or buddhinashaha. From destruction of intelligence he perishes. Buddhinashat pranashyati. So I would just like to mention here before we chant it that there is therefore a huge recommendation in the Indian traditions that what you are thinking upon is very important, because if you keep contemplating on something, that concentrated contemplation or dwelling upon can either lead to your downfall or it can lead to your upliftment. And when does it lead up to your upliftment? When you're thinking of things that are higher than you, that are more noble than you. So that's why there was an invitation to think about the guru, or positive ideas, because when you think of that, there is an upliftment of the spirit that happens instead of buddhinashaha. So let me say it, chant it out, and ask you to repeat after me. Dhyayato vishayan punsaha sangasteshu pajayate sangat sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammohaha sammohat smriti vibhramaha smriti bhramshat buddhi nashaha, or smriti bhramshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. Alright, I'd just like to mention that when we do it continuously, then you would say smriti bhramshat buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashyati. But if you're pausing there, you would say smriti bhramshat buddhi nashaha buddhi nashat pranashyati. Uttamam. Lot of food for thought in these two verses, and like I said, it can really, understanding these verses can help you lead lives in very sensible ways. So let's move on to the quotation by Rudolf Steiner, who was an Austrian philosopher, social reformer, architect, economist, esotericist, and an educationist. In fact, there are lots of these Steiner schools around the world where he introduced a very novel kind of pedagogy. And it's interesting to see that even Steiner was influenced, had contact with Indian thought, and he was also inspired by it. So he says that in Gita as a sublime text, he says, in order to approach a creation as sublime as the Bhagavad Gita with full understanding, it is necessary to attune our soul to it. Some references there. Shubham bhuyat te sada. And with these words, I will allow you to contemplate on these different grammatic forms that we have seen, and also very importantly, the verse that we have seen can open up pathways to leading a much better life. Punar milamaha.